Good morning everyone, Tater here, welcome to Tater Games, and today we're going to be talking about how to structure an SQL properly. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's, no ink. This is why people prepare for this sort of stuff. Today we're talking about SQL. It's perfect. It's a great way to store your items and stuff like that. You can do it in a million different ways, running it on web servers and stuff like that. But the SQL is actually one of the easiest ways to actually store stuff online. So when people log into their account, they can actually access all their data. So I encourage you to learn this if you're making an online game where things need to be saved. So not like an IO game, because nothing gets saved in IO games really. More like something like an MMO is a great example, or something where people have their own accounts. And you want to access information, for example, have they purchased this item, if you're doing in-app purchases, and a lot of stuff like that is very, very useful. But one thing I screwed up in the first time I made my MMO project was making the SQL be accessed too often. Now, because I'm not actually paying for an incredible server to host my website on, it's important that we don't make, you know, just a ton of calls to the SQL server. So the way that I had it originally structured for the MMO project was really cool, because the original MMO worked like this. You had something called item data, and that stored all your items in a table, and usually it would be like you had a unique ID, so an ID that identified that particular item, and then you'd have another column or something with, like, let's say a name of that item, another column which is like what type of item that is, blah blah blah. We created all of this stuff, and that's really cool. And then of course we had another one for like account data, something like that, and that was really fun as well. But that one stored like usernames, emails, and passwords, which I've talked about before, and it's problematic to have that stuff on there. But let's say that your server can't be accessed in any way, so the account data is actually really safe. This is the way I structured it before, and now I've got a completely different system, which I'm so glad I screwed up in the original MMO version about 6 months ago. I screwed up that version by doing exactly what I'm going to show you. So if you want to load an account data, you would go have the user log in with their username, password, and actually load whatever table they are. Let's say they're player number 3, for example, even though it starts at 0, so 0, 1, 3, 2, we'll just say. It's player number 3, so it takes that line and it goes and matches it, make sure that the password is correct, and blah blah blah. If username is equal to the username here, then sweet. If the password is equal to the password here, sweet. And if the email account is equal to the email, whatever, just everything is good and they've managed to log in. And then it's going to say, well, all your item data is here. You own item number 1, item number 725, you own that. And so it's going to say, oh, item number 1, 725, item number 6, 12, I'll just use easy numbers. Let's say you only had 4 items. Great, so we've got all these 4 items here, and it's all been loaded from item data using the account that we've logged in with. Awesome, that's really sweet. Now, if I say look at my inventory and I'm like, I don't want item number 1, it's a block of wood and it's just taking up space in my inventory, I'm going to drop it. So what would happen would then the player would drop it, and then in the game itself, the wood would actually spawn down on the ground. And in order to drop it, it would access the database and go, okay, this one in column dropped would equal yes. So in the column dropped, it would say yes, great. So the wood's dropped, and then it would give a location, right? And the location would be exactly where in the world it's dropped, so that somebody else can come and pick it up. So if somebody else does come and pick that up, all that does is say dropped, yes, no. My point is, when you drop the wood, when you see the wood, it's got it from the SQL and gone, okay, let's see what items he has. And he's like, okay, we have wood, this, that, and that. And that's all in his inventory. And then in order to drop the wood, we need to access this SQL server again and say, I want to drop the wood. And so we'll say, okay, wood is now changed to dropped, and it's dropped in this vector 3 position in the 3D world. Great, so you access the SQL data again, and somebody else comes and picks it up, and we have the same problem again. Somebody else picks it up and they access this and say, no, it's not dropped, now it's in my inventory, and I am now the owner of this item that exists somewhere in the world. The bad thing about this is that you're going to have hundreds upon hundreds of thousands or even millions of items within your game. Every time somebody chops a block of wood and every time somebody does something, let's say we have 10 people and they all access the server at the exact same time. That's a massive queue that people are trying to get into. Sorry if you heard the Discord notifications. They happen all the time. And so if people are using an SQL 3 times to get their account information, drop the wood and pick up the wood, I know I'm saying wood a lot and I shouldn't be because that's a dirty word in some people's minds, but they're using the SQL, you know, 3 times for a simple just drop and pick up thing. Not to mention it needs to update on their one, so the moment they pick up the wood they need to update their item data in their inventory screen. So the moment you drop it, you're going to be like, okay, update my data, what do I have now? I don't have wood anymore, so I only have these 3. And then the next person's going to go, when they pick it up, that's even more, that's 4 times. Accessing the SQL, not the SQL, sorry. This shouldn't be SQL, this should be the database. So I'm accessing the database 4 times in order to do a simple, you know, give something to somebody else on the server. That's terrible. Don't do that. That will crash a server, especially if you have more than 1 player on it. If you have 1 player, it's fine. If you have 2 players, yeah, it's still fine. But the moment you get past almost 5 players or 6 or 7, you know, even 100 players cannot play your game because that's too much going through the server at the same time. So what exactly is the solution to all of this? How can you make it so that you don't access the SQL so much? Well, you batch data together. Instead of updating every time you do it, you have your client actually do the update for you, right? So it's going to go, you drop the wood, and it's going to make it disappear from your inventory. This should sound pretty self-explanatory to anybody who's done this before, but seeing as it was my first time working with databases, I've never touched this stuff before, it was actually really huge for me to know that, well, you can just trick the player into thinking that the item has disappeared. So you decide to drop it, it drops it instantly on there, sends the information out to actually change the SQL in the exact same way, and you can actually cut down the update on the way back from 4 to 2 messages, 1 from dropping and 1 from picking up. Oh, there's a mosquito. And if they don't pick it up for a while, well, it's not going to update for a while, and I don't think many things are going to be that instantaneous whilst you're playing. Oh, there it is, a mosquito. Oh, great, now there's blood on my hands. Okay. And so, yeah. Basically, you just cut it in half by not updating it using the SQL. It won't be as accurate, but it will travel through the SQL. And if for some reason dropping the wood fails, then it's going to bring it back the next time you update it, which can be sequential almost. So every 30 seconds, maybe you update to make sure that everything here in your inventory has actually updated. And that's a great way to do it with only 2 times, but that's for dropping and picking up. So every time you drop a piece of wood, it does 1. It's only got 1 message being sent through the network. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, but that's just me. And another thing you can do is actually batch what gets dropped. So for example, if you're in the same spot, and you can do this all client side, so the client's in the exact same spot and he wants to drop all of his items. Instead of sending every single one through the network, what you can do is wait until he's moved before the item actually drops. And therefore you can go, okay, we want to drop this, we want to drop this, and those are the only 2 items we want to drop, and we send them both through the exact same call, through the exact same PHP script that accesses our SQL and deletes 2 lines. And that only counts as 1 call through the network because A, it's loading the PHP script only once, but you're also getting rid of 2 items. So that's one other way that you can save on it. And it just makes things a whole lot easier if you cut down on the amount of networking that actually needs to be done. And a great thing somebody once told me was, making a multiplayer game is tricking the player into thinking the game is multiplayer. That's really important because it is, essentially. Everything that you do on the client can kind of trick them into thinking it's happening real time when really it's not. And that's the best way to make anything, because you want them to have the experience of it. I mean, you're lying to them, yeah, but you also want them to have the experience of flawless mechanics that seem to not be networked. That seems to be the way. It won't be accurate, but you can fix that using a gain that's what I call sequential kind of updating. So every 30 seconds or a minute, or however long you want that period to be, it could be 5 seconds, but then you just access the database a lot more in order to get this information here. And it's one big lie, because the movement and everything like that is not exactly networked as well as you may think. It's two separate things. You've got the game being run on the client as well, and then you've got the database, which is just items and just numbers being transferred throughout the entire game. I thought this was cool, and basically what I wanted to teach you was, yeah, batch your drops together if you can, or try and find tricky ways to actually get around sending more than 4 messages and end up only sending 2 or half everything, because you don't need to update this constantly. The player doesn't need to be in tune with that, and you can do that all client-side. If you can do things client-side, do it. It's a lot more powerful than doing it through the internet, and you know, obviously it's a lot quicker, and people like that. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry, I'm not sorry. I'm just making stuff because I'm bored, and see you later.